Welcome everybody, thank you so much for coming. We are sat here with our fan, just fanning ourselves because it is warm here tonight. But thank you so much to Reward Gateway for hosting us in their gorgeous office. Round of applause to them. They are brand new, so hopefully you're all enjoying the refreshments and food. We've got lots more time for networking afterwards. But for those of you that I haven't met already, my name is Izzy Bishop. I work as the head of brand at Wiser Elite. And tonight we are so excited to be joined by such an incredible lineup of panelists to be talking about why you're not in President's Club yet. Who here has made President's Club? Hand up. Nice. Who here hasn't made President's Club but they want to? Fucking great, great. So hopefully we're gonna help you get to President's Club, and we're gonna do a bit of a split because for any of those that have been to SDRs and AEs of London events before, normally we just do a panel, but tonight we've got the amazing Benjamin Dennehy here with us, so who needs no introduction, and he's gonna be doing a bit of a fireside chat with us just to kick things off, all around why he hates SaaS. So that's really helpful because I think most people in the
realise it was a SaaS
are in SaaS. You absolutely did. We spoke about this on the prep call. Thank you very much. So he doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. He calls himself the UK's most hated sales trainer and has liberated frustrated and mediocre salespeople from a life of order taking and begging. Wow, so profound. With 21 years of experience, not giving away your age, in sales, he has trained and transformed thousands of salespeople's careers globally, and hopefully he can do the same with one lucky winner here tonight. Because as you all know, when you signed up for this event, you were asked to have a small fee, which would go towards a coaching session for one lucky winner, which is usually valued at £429.
Even higher, but we'll say that for now.
£4,000 it is valued at, and you're getting it for free, a one-to-one with this man. So drum roll please, at random, the winner is Stella Latti, SDR at last. Woo! Congrats! No pressure.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, so good. Love that.
Awesome.
So good.
Well done.
We'll get your details afterwards, Stella. So, to start this fireside chat off, we're going to talk for about 15 minutes. Why do you hate SaaS?
Okay, so I have to be careful. It may have changed in the years and I haven't been involved in it, but for me, one of the reasons I hated when I would go in and train with SaaS companies is the culture of get in front of someone, vomit on them, do a demo, beg for the business, offer a discount, offer some sort of incentive, and then try to go back in and get them. And I hated the process of lack of disqualification. I mean, I used to watch the competitions of people doing cold calling, you know, those cold calling competitions, and everyone's trying to, and I didn't realize what a lot of SaaS people did with that. I always used to call it like a pre-call. You'd phone someone up to beg for another 15-minute call the following week, and that was class. Yes, I got a meeting. So why? How many of those drop out? And you guys make cold calls. How many cold calls never actually, meetings never take place once a cold call's booked? Half? Yeah. Why do most of them not take place? I mean, if we're good at getting meetings, why do these meetings drop out? Why are these people not dropping? Yeah. Don't see value, yeah?
I'm allowed to talk, you're on the panel.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sure, you're not allowed to talk, huh? Don't have a problem. Yeah, and most of the time it's when you listen back to the call, the person's just given up, haven't they? They've just given it. The only way to get rid of a salesperson, say, fine, I'll meet you next week. Because you've been trained and taught that you just keep talking at someone until they relentlessly give in, right? Just get in front of them. All we got to do is get... You know how many times I've got in front of a leader and all they say, this is the opening line, we're great when we get in front of people. We just need to be in front of more people. And then you go through the figures and you realize how many meetings a month they're actually going on and how many of those meetings are converting to business. It's like, you don't need more meetings. You are not doing your job at selling. And a lot of time in SaaS, they manage things that don't matter. For instance, one company measured talk time. Anyone been in a company that measures talk time? What's the fucking point? But now you've got to ask yourself this, because this is what you're going to do. If you're going to measure something, it's got to be to encourage a behavior that's productive. So what do you think measuring people on talk time does? What does it encourage? What sort of behavior are you encouraging? Just keep talking at someone. Yeah, and they do it. And you can talk to someone for 20 minutes and get nowhere. But that's 20 minutes out of the 90 of the day that you got to do right. So if you're going to measure something that matters. Also dials. How many people have been given dial targets? Again, it's a pointless target because how many of you, be honest, how many of you have ever tried calling the talking clock to hit your number? Yeah,
Just one.
just what?
And that was at your company, Lou.
Right at the start, you know, but what you would do is you would phone people or things. So what do you want to, what I always say is you should measure behavior. You should set metrics, sorry, that's going to measure behavior that matters. And I think the number one metric that matters is talking to decision makers. So rather than say you need to make 60 dials, you need to be on the phone for 120 minutes. It's like, no, you need to speak to 10 decision makers in our target audience every day. If you get to those 10, doesn't matter if you get a meeting or not, because within what we can then do is, if you're getting 10 meetings, 10 conversations a day at director level, or whatever level you're supposed to be calling at, and at the end of the week you haven't got a meeting, but you've had 50 conversations, what does that tell us? You suck. Something you're saying or how you're saying it doesn't work. You're not lazy. You're not putting in the behavior. You've had 50 conversations at director level, but none of them want to meet with you. So now we can go away and look at what you've done, listen to it and break it down and say, this is why it's failing. You can't get better at sales if you measure things that don't encourage behavior that's successful. That's why I found SaaS struggling. I had one guy, I was coaching him. He was hitting his target without doing a demo. Guess what his company told him he had to do? Demos. And he said, but I don't need to. Doesn't matter. You're measured on demos. Demo is a KPI. And when you sit in the boardroom and we've done 300 demos, each demo's got a 36% chance of selling, and each one of those has got an order value of 30K. Woohoo, we've made $500,000. It's all nonsense, right? But it looks good on a spreadsheet. So SaaS used to frustrate me because that was the approach they had. So, but when you work with individuals, it changed. So that's why I hate SaaS.
I mean, just a few reasons.
Just a few.
Yeah. I feel the anger coming off.
There is, because I would watch salespeople get so frustrated. This is a really tough job if it's done badly, isn't it? This is a really, really horrible, it's a very lonely job too. You can't really talk to your friends about what you do for a living, can you? Think of it, it's not one of those jobs that will get around, oh, it's all right, you know. It's hard and it's lonely. And if you're being forced to do behaviors that aren't going to make you any better, it's very easy to get disheartened. And I've seen so many people, and I used to be there. That's why I do what I do, because I was one of those people. And I used to, you know, you're like this, you're up and down, you're emotional roller coaster. You do good one month and shit the next, and good another, up and down. It's because we were never given things that helped us get better. So that's why I found SaaS particularly frustrating.
I want to talk to you about that emotional roller coaster. So as we said, sales is really, really tough. There are so many highs and lows.
Yes.
And I'm not sure, I can't speak for everybody in this room, but I'm imagining the reason why most people are in sales is because they get a kick out of winning. Everybody get a kick out of winning, making money. And maybe that winning also comes from external validation of your peers, people going, oh shit, you're really good at what you do. And so there's this real need to be liked. And I know that this is something that you think we shouldn't, as salespeople, need to be liked. Why is that?
So there's a difference between being liked and wanting to be liked. So I don't advocate you go on and be a complete tool bag, right? You know, that's not what I advocate. What I advocate is if you're going in with a belief that you need to get the prospect to like you, to warm to you, to feel comfortable with you, you behave in a manner that makes you subservient. You behave in a manner where you don't ask the right questions. You don't challenge. You're scared to ask questions in case you may upset them or in case you hear a no. Salespeople hate hearing no, don't they?
No.
No? No? You all like hearing no? No, yeah, you're all lying to me now. It doesn't matter. I know yourself, yeah? We don't like no. So we try to avoid no. It's like with cold calling. We spend so much time trying to figure out how to overcome objections and how to overcome the initial stalls. No one ever focuses on, well, what happens when they actually say, well, yes, I am interested. That's a bit of the conversation very few people focus on. And it's normally there where you screw it up. You finally got someone on the hook and then you don't know what to do because you spent your whole time practicing how to overcome the challenges and the objections. So being liked encourages you to behave in a manner that isn't in your best interest. Do you need to like your lawyer to trust they'll do a good job? No. Do you need to like your doctor to trust that they can do a good job? Right, now those are what we call professions. Is selling a profession? Would you consider this a profession?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So we don't need to be liked either. We need to be trusted and respected. And we can't do that if we're trying to get our prospects to like us. Yeah? Don't be liked, because if you're good at your job, people will naturally start to like you anyway, unless you're a complete tosser, a bit like me. But other than that, you'll be fine. But it's just the detachment from the outcome is so important. If you're not attached to the outcome, being liked is unnecessary. And it's easy to say, and I meet so many salespeople say, oh, I don't need to be liked. You just got to watch and listen to how they behave in a meeting, and you can see it. I mean, what's the hardest question you've ever had to ask a prospect? What's a question? Think about it. What's a question you really wanted to ask, but you didn't ask it? Can you think of one? A really uncomfortable, awkward, a question that could get you punched. Cognizant.
And then having to challenge somebody like on the day somebody puts you, I think it's a very difficult thing to say.
It is.
But
Okay, so I'll give you a true story. I was in a meeting with the CEO of a resource management company, cold called him, got in front of him. And what a lot of salespeople don't do is they don't go with their gut. You know, you be in a meeting talking to someone and you're listening to them tell you what's going on, and part of you's thinking, oh, this doesn't seem right. There's something not right about this. So this CEO was banging on about the problems he had with his business. And my gut said, this doesn't feel right. So I asked him a question, which I know most people are too scared to ask. But if you're going to insult someone, you've got to get permission. You know that, don't you? Yeah? So if you're going to insult someone, you have to say, do you mind if I ask you? I asked him, do you mind if I ask you a question, but I'm scared that if I do, you're going to punch me in the face? I'm going to say, how do I do that? And what does anyone say if you ask them that? They give you permission. Yeah, as long as it's not about someone in their immediate family, you're going to be okay. And he said, just ask it. I said, are you sure this is an absolute humding? He goes, just ask it. I said, fine. I said, this is my question. Why don't you just quit? And it's the best question I asked, because he looked at me, and I still remember this. He smirked. He said, you know, it's funny you asked me that. Because I tendered my resignation 2 weeks ago. This is after I booked the meeting too. So this is another reason. Why is he having a meeting with the salesman if he's resigned? He doesn't give a toss. He's just filling in his diary. I got 2 weeks here. What do I care, right? They think nothing of wasting your time. So then I said, can I ask one more question then? I said, you can't buy from me, can you? He goes, no. Now, had I not asked that, I could have wasted I could have come out and thinking, man, this guy's in so much pain. I can help him. But he was in so much pain. Get out of the sales persona of trying to get the win and ask yourself, just be a real human being. If you're at the pub and someone had told you what this guy just told you, would you try and sell him something, or actually be more brutally honest and say, why the fuck do you just quit? It sounds like shit. So this is why, if you're trying to be liked, you're going to struggle to come up with those sorts of questions. And trust me, you can get away, not literally, but almost with murder in meetings. I try to get thrown out. It's really hard to get thrown out of an office.
Have you ever been thrown out?
Just once.
Why?
I was a lawyer, actually. I seem to always have a bad reaction with lawyers.
You're in a safe space. Hopefully there's no lawyer.
You know, one of the things I teach is to always answer a question with a question. And the reason I do that is because 99% of the time, a person will always rephrase what they asked. So somebody says, where are you based? You say, what do you mean? They normally add something like, well, we'd prefer to work with someone based in London, or we'd rather, they give more information. But 1%, which I didn't know at this moment in time, they ask exactly the same question again. And if they ask exactly the same question, what I discovered in this moment is you can't ask another question back, because it'll piss them off. And he did. He said to me, I just want to know, how much will it cost? Who have you worked for, and how long it will take? And I said, when you say how much will it cost, can I ask? He goes, I just want to know, how much will it cost? Who have you worked with, and how long will it take? And I went back in with another question, and he stood up and he said, I think you should leave. And I said, yeah. I said, no, I'd probably kick me out too if I were you. But of course, having no shame, I said, can I ask one more question?
Well done.
And he said, yes. I said, can I have a biscuit? And I left with a biscuit.
What was the biscuit?
It was a ginger stem. I remember, the 2-pack ginger stems you get that all law firms have? And I remember I kept this biscuit though, because A, I left with more than I went in with. It's important to me. But it was a reminder because it enabled me to go away and sit in the park. Why did that screw up? How did I go wrong? And that's something you should be doing. Whenever you make a call or go to a meeting and it doesn't go the way it should, your job is to sit down and ask yourself, where did it go wrong? Where did I go wrong? You know, you can't fail at being a prospect. You know that. They can't fail. The only person in that scenario that can fail is a salesperson. You got to figure out why you failed. Yeah, always try and break down what you did wrong, because it will always be your fault. Even if they could never buy from you. So how the hell did I get here? Yeah? How do we get here? So yeah, always do that.
Well, we don't have ginger biscuits for you to take home with you after the event, but we do have sweets, pizzas, so please do take some as you leave us. But you're not leaving yet, because we are about to welcome 3 incredible industry leaders and performers for our panel. Can we have a huge round of applause? Perfect. I'm sure everybody has so many questions that they want to be asking, and you're probably all like bubbling to go, but we're going to speak for about 45 minutes with the panel. There's so much that we're going to get through. Hopefully we're going to answer all of your questions, but if you do have any more questions for us, we will have time for about a 15-minute Q&A at the end, and we'll pass around a little mic for the recording. I do have to say before we kick off this panel, if you want to connect with our panelists in your goodie bags, thanks to our sponsors, thank you so much. We've got QR codes for all of our speakers, so please do connect with them. I'm sure you will accept their connection requests, you will. We've also got a QR code to leave us a Google review if you'd like to, and also a QR code for more information on our sponsors this evening. So, without further ado, we are going to be talking about how you get into President's Club. So I'm going to do some introductions. We have Nazma Querban, who is the co-founder at Fluencer. Nazma progressed from SDR to CRO at Cognizant in just 5 years, which is so incredible, scaling the revenue from $0 to $10 million ARR. Yeah, big up. Round of applause. Woo! Epic. Shout out Cognizant. She now leverages her go-to-market experience to help B2B brands tap into the power of influencer marketing. And if that's not enough for you to be impressed on why to listen to Nazma this evening, she's also earned herself some pretty impressive accolades, including Global Top 50 Women in Tech, Top 3 UK Sales Leaders SaaS, and Top 10 Inspirational Women in Tech. Yes! Woo! To her left, we have the incredible. We did a podcast and I said he was incredible, and now that is your tagline. You're walking around. So if you do network after, Luke will introduce himself as the incredible. But he is the VP of Sales at Comply Advantage, where he's transformed go-to-market strategy, driving rep productivity from 12% to 239% in just 12 months, which is epic. Previously, he was the founding VP of Sales at Instabase, where he grew ARR from $7 to $52 million. And at App Dynamics, where he was the founding AE in EMEA, he helped scale EMEA revenue from $2.5 to $158 million in just 4 years. Huge round of applause. And last but not least, we are a room filled with SDRs and AEs, and I think you all need an AE to look up to aspire to perform just as great as, which is why we had to invite the incredible Scott Findon, AE at Monday.com, on this panel. He is also the founder of BD Best Practices. He was the second employee at ReachDesk and helped grow the company from 0 to 18 million. He was named UK's top 100 salespeople in Wiser Elite's 100 over 100 in 2022. And then he joined Monday.com in 2023, and he has just finished his year-to-date target at 151%. Congrats. Let's go. Has that earned you a spot at President's Club?
Monday is like a product-led growth company, and they're like kind of like anti-sales, so we don't have like an official President's Club.
Oh.
In my
Should have asked this before.
Yeah, no. In my mind, I did. Yeah.
No, huge people that we are going to be learning from today. And I wanted to start this panel with the topic that we're talking about, which is why we're not hitting President's Club, and do a bit of a round robin, starting with Ben. We'll go down the line. And sorry, I know you've just spoken for 15 minutes. What would you say? No, let's start with Scott then. Go for it. What is the one reason why you think people aren't hitting President's Club?
That's a good question. I think consistency, probably. One of the main things that I think I keep top of mind for myself is turning up every single day and managing my energy. So managing things like my sleep, like eating good food, like having consistency in my routine, exercising, like doing team sports, being part of the team, helping to those around me, and yeah, consistency with the output. So every single email, every single call, every single demo, every single aspect of the role, I'm bringing the best version of myself to that, whatever it is. And I think a lot of people miss that, you know. There's a lot of, like, we spoke about the emotional roller coaster of sales, and that can impact you. You know, you can have a bad day, you can have a bad month or quarter, and that can have a knock-on effect. So I think trying to like steady the ship as much as possible and just focusing on whatever's in front of you and just being the best version of yourself for that. That's something I think a lot of people kind of miss out on or maybe struggle with for various reasons. So that'd probably be top for me.
Amazing. And Luke?
I think it's because people bullshit themselves. I think salespeople are hopelessly dishonest with their reality so often. They think they've got deals when they haven't. They think they've got pipeline when they haven't. They think they've got champions when they haven't. They think they're doing the right things when they're not. And that's why.
Fair. We can all go home now. Nazma?
Well, we should have exchanged notes because you guys have stolen mine. So I think it's definitely about understanding exactly what it takes to get to Presence Club. Like, what does it mean? What are your goals? And understanding exactly what you need to do in order to get to them. So if your target is 1 million in a given year, like, how many deals does that mean? What does your pipeline look like? What are the quarterly activities, monthly activities, or daily activities? And you just need to reverse engineer, and then so that you have a solid plan, and then all you need to do is execute. And then don't bullshit yourself and just be consistent.
And then you'll become CRO in 5 years. So pretty simple. Great answer.
So I would say I created the character UK's most hated sales trainer because I think it's important as a salesperson to have like a uniform. You know, you gotta separate your role from your identity, and too many people confuse what they do for a living with who they are as a human being. You got to remember, you can't fail at being you. You can't fail at being a brother, a sister, a husband, an uncle, a cousin, but you can fail in your role as a salesperson. And I think what happens with too many salespeople is they fail at work or they have a bad week, and then they feel it deep inside. And then you reflect on it and you think, I'm not that good. I'm pretty great. You've got to learn to separate that out. Yeah. So I created this ridiculous character so that no matter what happens out there in the real world, when I come home, I can just take off my hat and I can say, well, the UK's most hated sales trader has shit day, but I'm fine underneath. And I think separating role from identity is really important, because if it bleeds in, it's going to affect how you perform. You can get better at your role, but you can't be better at you. You're already a 10 out of 10, right? Who is not a 10 out of 10 personally?
Everyone.
You all are, right?
No, everyone's not a 10 out of 10.
Personally.
There's not a single fucker in this room, including me, that's a 10 out of 10.
Agreed.
Right, 9.5 then, just to please it.
Because then what? Did we just all say it's done and we go home?
No. What I'm talking about, they're personal. Being as a human being, you're a 10 out of 10? As a person?
Not.
No?
How?
Why?
Look, what, I'm perfect.
No, you're not. I didn't say you're perfect, but you feel good about yourself.
I feel good, but I'm not a 10 out of 10. I mean, that's sort of some sort of like completion state. Like the idea that like you can also separate yourself from like your professional self, but you have to be authentic at work.
Yes, I don't. You're not saying you're not being authentic.
I think
by separating
not taking things personally is a really good point, but like there's no such thing as being a 10 out of 10 ever.
There is.
How?
You just say it.
But so you feel like you're a 10 out of 10 in your personal life?
Well, yeah, I do. I'm very happy. I'm very content. And whatever happens at work, I'm able to keep it
For
separate.
you, Ben.
Yes, it is good for me.
Can I just say,
That's why you create the character. It enables you to do that.
we all love each other and we wanted to host this in a boxing room because I want this. So this is great. There is no right or wrong answer for any of these questions. So I really urge the panelists to challenge each other. You guys challenge each other. We'll go for a beer after.
He's a 10 now.
He's a 10.
He feels it. He's a 10. He's been pretty 10 right now. You go, you see?
I think he's a 9 now. So you guys just had that spat. But you all look like 10s. I think it's so important for us to talk about, as you said, like your personal life, and Scott, you've mentioned, which I think is so right for you to work on outside of your work life, how you can be that 10 out of 10 and to stay motivated in this really, really difficult industry that we've just said has so many highs and lows. It's really important that we stay true to our why and what got us into this industry and why we're doing sales, because it is tough. And I'm sure everybody has woken up in mornings and gone, why am I doing this job? So I would love to hear from all of our panelists what your why is and what motivates you. Let's start with Nazma.
Okay, so let's go.
It'll be good.
So my why today is very different to my why when I first started my sales career. I think that's really important to distinguish. And so when I first started in sales, basically I had graduated, I had a degree in law, and
You too.
yeah,
Lawyers.
yeah, lovely.
Sorry, so you don't suit each other.
And I guess I always thought that I'd be a lawyer. And when I made the decision not to, I could just see it on my, if you hadn't noticed, I'm South Asian. So my parents were very disappointed, like stereotypical parents that either want you to be a doctor or a lawyer. And so I just knew that wasn't for me. So I decided to explore a career in sales. And so that was even more disappointing for them. And for me, I felt, yeah, it's like,
It's okay.
yeah, right, probably thought on the route. It's like, you don't want to be a lawyer? Oh, sales. And I'm going to show you my age now, but back in those days, sales was not something cool at all. Like, it was like, what are you doing? And it was recruitment, so I kind of get it now. Kind of get it. So,
We all started that.
yeah, we did. The best one, the best salespeople are ex-recruiters. Just say.
That's right, boys.
Respect to all
Recruiter.
So you all stop laughing because this is hosted by Wiser Elite, which is a recruitment company. So thank you.
Yeah. They're paying for the bit.
The best, right? Yeah, they're the best. And I think for me, it was, yeah, proving to others, proving to my parents, proving to my peers, proving to all my friends that were basically on the route to becoming solicitors, became solicitors, that actually I can be just as successful. And if I work hard, I can create a career which, in my opinion, is successful. So that was my why, which was to prove to others. My why today, which I'm very proud of, is like to prove it to myself that I have so much potential in me. And like, I guess when I think about this question, the why is like, what gets you up in the morning? And it's like handing that responsibility to myself. Like my why is like getting up and like pushing through. So because I'm responsible for myself, that I show up every single day as the best version of myself, and I'm striving and I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm doing the things that I like to do. And that's where I'm at the moment. And
We'll have you on a panel in 5 years and we'll ask you back then.
That chip is off your shoulder, my friend.
yeah, it is. But the one thing that I would add, just thinking about the why, so my motivation now is, okay, I just want to be the best version of myself. And then I thought, okay, but why? I kept asking myself that question, like, why? And it's almost, I feel that there's like a fear in me that in 5 years' time, that what if I don't show up and be responsible and show up as the best version of myself and do the best that I can? And then when I think to myself, when I first started out, the fear was, but what if I don't make it? Like, what if I made a bad decision? And what if my parents are right? And what if I am the loser of all my friend groups? And I think that a lot of our why does stem from fear. And my true believing right now, because we all change, we all evolve, is that a lot of our motivation, the biggest motivation, is always like driven by fear.
Fear and greed.
Fear and greed, yeah.
So
Yeah. It's not greed anymore, but fear.
But it's always,
Greed, yeah, you're absolutely right, yeah.
it's always like
yeah.
a mix of those two
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Luke, what's your why?
Well, changes. This is the thing I say. You know, you've got to introspect to a point where like you know what it is at this point in life, right? And like my why, you know, coming out of uni was just try and rise to the top as quickly as I could, work harder than everyone else, just be better, just because I wanted to just prove to myself, and I grew up piss poor in Bolton and just wanted to make kind of the best life I could for myself. And, then you do it and you finally get into SaaS and you get that first job and you're like, wow, there's like loads of money to be made here. And then it's like, well, I'm going to outwork everyone. And, then initially it was kind of about the money and the money being the validating factor that, and then you buy the car and you buy the house and you're like, all right, well, okay. It's like, it's nice to have these things, but it's not really what matters. And then you meet you know, the person of your dreams. And I did. And then you have a family, and now I've got 2 little girls, age 2 and 5. And like, so they're my why now, right? Because I want to provide a life for them that I didn't have as you know, as a kid growing up. And they're definitely having it. Lucky kids. But I also professionally, I think about 2013 when I met this guy, Jeremy Duggan, who was the VP of EMEA for App Dynamics. And I remember, you know, I met him and everyone was like, don't meet him, he's an asshole. Like, he's BMC, PTC, fucking playbook maniac. Like, just stay the fuck away. And I was like, all right, yeah, let's have a go. I'll have a go at that. And so yeah, I met him, and yeah, he was a bit of an asshole, but I was like, I like this. Like, let's fucking go. And we, you know, it was spicy, and we had a good chat, and I was like, this guy is going to change my life. And he did. And he taught me things that have given me the ability to give my girls, my wife, the life that they have. And now I'm at a point where I know that shit cold. So now it's my time to pass that
Be an
on.
asshole.
Trying to be a little less, but I'm still a bit of an arsehole, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. Scott.
I think the same, like the why changes over time. But I remember when I was like a BDR, when I first started, like my PDP was like a massive motivator for me. So I used to print it out, A4 piece of paper, like stick it on my wall, work from home, and it would have the quarterly, monthly, daily, you know, inputs. So that was just like my motivator. And I literally, like, you know, purposely put it in my eye line, like right next to me. And then just like trusted the process. That's something that we learned a lot of Reach Desk, is like just trust the process. Same thing, there's ups and downs, but control your controllables and put the inputs in, and then trust that good things will happen. So I think as long as you pick a good company, and as long as you have a strong why, and then you're consistent, then good things come from it. But yeah, again, before I didn't realize how well like you could do in sales. Like when I was an SDR, I was like, oh, you know, when I get promoted to A, I might get a bit of a pay rise, and then like I got promoted. I was like, oh, you can earn this much. I was like, cool. I didn't realize, and that's why you gotta work in recruitment.
You don't do that now.
But IT salespeople were like, what the fuck is this all about? Like, they're making loads of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that as a goal, and but yeah, that's obviously a strong motivator. But now, yeah, I think a lot more conceptually and philosophically, and I'm trying to build a life, and my wife's here. So where's the wife?
Dennehy.
Where is she? Good choice. Good choice.
But one of the things I wrote on my like wish list when I was like an SDR was like, I want to be the kind of person that like my future wife will want to meet or be with.
Yes.
And then I met my wife, you know.
Are we happy?
Great. Good.
Are you Miss?
Are you happy?
Are you the type of person? Cool. Yeah, exactly.
Happy to be honest with you. Yeah.
This is therapy. Right. Okay. And Ben, what is your why? I know you've got a really strong one.
Well, my original why was I needed a job. I've always said that that's how mostly, because I needed money. Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because I was broke. Yeah, no. So the main reason was I'm the same. I qualified as a barrister, came over to England, decided to stay, but couldn't practice law. So what do you do if you're educated? I was thinner then, and I looked all right in the suit, and I didn't dribble. That means I'm now qualified to enter sales, because that was pretty much the only barrier to get in, because I had no skill set, right? So that's how I got into sales. Over time, my why is, why do I stay here? Because I realized as life progressed that if you get good at this is an incredibly easy job if you get good at it. I work for myself, so it's a little different if you work for a large corporate. So I work for myself. I've always wanted to be. I'm a very loner type of character like that. I like being controlling everything. So I got good at something that I could control and master. And I did it because A, I knew it would make money, but B, I wanted the freedom to be able to do what I wanted when I want. And I have that now. I flipped between New Zealand and the UK. I took 16 weeks holiday last year. The money still comes in, and I have the freedom. Same with you. My daughter, her lifestyle is so different from mine growing up. I mean, it's just, I can't get over how different it is. So I do it because of the freedom that it gives us and gives me. And it's very satisfying being the master of your own destiny. And I've always said all salespeople are really self-employed, because if you get really good, you are self-employed. You are the master of your own domain. So
the autonomy.
Yeah. Get really good, and you don't need to work for anyone. You can sell your service. That's what I did. I started selling my services to other people. And then I went into training. I wanted the freedom, and it's given it to me. So that's my why now, is I always feel if I ever was given a job, it would feel like a community sentence handed down by a court, right? You must go to work every day, 9 to 5, and it would kill me. Yeah. So no, I did it. I still do it now. I do it now for the freedom and the autonomy. And yeah.
And I'm so glad that you don't dribble, because that would be a really, really interesting panel sat here. Right, Luke, so getting into the conversations that I think we're all here to listen about. You've said before that reps have selfish tendencies resulting in weak champions. So how would you advise our audience how they can prevent this endless optimism that they actually have a strong champion, and how can they work with them to make their lives easier?
Put your hand up in this room if it's your job to sell software. Wrong.
The death stare is so intense. It's like a laser.
When software gets bought in a company, who's selling it? The champion. Your job is to get that person ready for the fight of their lives. That is your job. Because you're not the one running around dealing with all the internal bullshit and the politics and the meetings and the committees and this procurement nonsense and all of that. Your job is to help an individual or group of individuals at a company buy your product. And so often I see emails that start with, I want this, I this, me this, we this, my deadline this, you promised me this. Selfish fucking bullshit from salespeople day in, day out, because it's all about them and their quota and their deal. And it's not. It's about them. It's about your champion, and it's about how you're adding value to that individual or that group of individuals every single day. Because if that's the mindset that you wire yourself with, you'll be a millionaire in 5 years. Because there are so many people out there that can win big in the companies that you're targeting by making really sensible strategic software investments. And by you making them look really fucking good in the process, the amount of people in my career that have been promoted multiple times and have completely different lives because of the software that has been bought, that I've been sold, is one of the most humbling and wonderful things that I can recount in my entire life. And I'm still deeply friendly with the people who were joking I've got no mates because I'm sad and lonely. Harry and Bronte over there taking the piss out of me earlier. And they were like, oh, you know, who's going to be at your funeral, Luke? Your champions.
They are in his team, by the way.
But
Major emotions, either.
Direct reports over there. That's the shit I put up with every day. And that's the truth, which is you got to stop acting like you're important, because you're not.
Can you tell the story that you told me about a champion that was really, really happy that they helped make their lives easier?
The guy, the Barclaycard guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, Glenn Parker. God bless him. This guy was like 59 or something, you know, a few years away from retirement, worked in Northampton at Barclaycard for like 28 years. Who does a job for 28 years? What's that all about? And he was just this lovely bloke that, like, his wife had already retired. He had the worst job. Like, his job was to manage IT operations for Barclaycard. So anytime any system fell over, that guy did not leave the office for sometimes days at a time, right? And he loved to go caravanning with his wife, but often he had to cancel his holidays. He had like a heart condition because he was stressed with work. There was like, he liked to drink wine and go, you know, to France, and all this stuff he couldn't do because he had this horrible job where he was just in war room after war room, close to the edge of death. And I went up and I remember, you know, I'm not his savior or anything, but like I sold him App Dynamics, for God's sake, right? Like, I'm not saving lives.
He's coming to your funeral.
But he's coming to my funeral. Yeah, Glenn Park will be there. But what genuinely was amazing was, yeah, we did the whole 12-month POV, you know, they spent $5 million, we did all the bullshit with the lawyers, but actually things got a lot better for Glenn, you know, and like, he got promoted to CIO -1, he got like a massive payout in his retirement. There was like way bigger bonus as a result for like all these efficiencies that he drove. Like, he really elevated, and his quality of life got so much better. And I remember him texting me, he was like, mate, things are going really well. And he sent me a picture of him and his wife in a vineyard in France, just enjoying a glass of wine. And he just said, thank you for everything that you've done.
I love that.
Did you also send him a picture of you on holiday with?
And I was probably at the office.
With the compensation.
Yeah, no. Me and Benita.
That's such an important story, which I really wanted you all to hear, is like you really can make such an impact. And we've spoken about like taking these selfish tendencies, taking your ego out of this and actually working with your champion to make their life easier. And when we work with champions, I know that we all are aware that multi-threading is so important. And Scott, you've done a post saying when you work with 4 or more people, your opportunities skyrocket. So I want to know from you, how do you multi-thread though without pissing off your champion?
Yeah, it's a hard one to answer. It's something that a lot of people struggle with, and it's I get asked it quite a lot as well. My thought is like multi-threading begins before the first call. So a lot of people think about multi-threading midway through a deal. A lot of people feel like they expect multi-threading to happening, like naturally they're just going to like run a sales cycle and, you know, automatically the words are going to spread and more people are going to get involved. I think having that kind of passive approach, you're just allowing way too much to chance, as opposed to being in control of it. So in terms of multi-threading, I think like one of the worst things you can do is go through the call, run a discovery, and then at the end of the call go, oh, can we get your boss on the next call? It's like the least effective way to multi-thread, because there's a fair chance they're just going to shut you down and say no. So my approach is always research the company ahead of time. Like Sales Navigator is one of the most powerful tools. Like Ben and I were talking at the start, 20 years ago, like people were using yellow pages to try and research companies, and like we've got this most powerful tool ever. Sorry, Ben.
Not that best 20 years ago. Well,
We did have computers back then, yeah.
If also, yeah.
But like we have these powerful tools, and I feel like they're underutilized. You know, we have Sales Nav, and like, oh, whatever, like it's just that tool, and it might be a tab open, and I don't know, you're just not actually using it. Whereas if you actually do 10 minutes, 50 minutes of prep before we have that first discovery, and you map out based on my knowledge of this industry and of my product and who we help, like I know that likely their direct report is that person, and I know that that C-suite person above them is there, and I know that parallel to that team, another team that we can support is those 2 people, and under them is probably them. Like as a sales rep, we should have that skill, like to be able to identify that like in a few minutes. Like that's kind of part of the job. So
Can I ask a question to this lot?
yeah,
Put your hand up. Again, I know it's death stage, so you probably don't want to do it now, but put your hand up if you're ever scared to make a cold call. I think it's fucking terrifying. I want to go back and do that job again.
So I would. I love it.
Yeah. Good for you, different. But like what he's just said, the research, the level of conviction that you speak with about how you're going to help that organization, it takes the fear out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can speak with context, and it gives you it informs your questions, because then you can say, so to the point around multi-threading as well. So my idea is once I've got that research, I jot it down, and I've got that in my notes on my screen. So as I'm going through a discovery call, I'll be opening up, do the rapport building, ace upfront contract, set the expectations, etc. into the discovery. But then once we're into pain, I'll ask something like, oh, so this challenge that you just mentioned there, like Mary, who leads the marketing team, is she also struggling with this, or does she have focuses elsewhere? So then you kind of like pivot and you kind of get on a first name basis with like other people in their team. And then they can either say, yeah, actually Mary's also really struggling with this, or, oh no, like her focus is actually this other thing right now, which is like blah, blah, blah. So using it as a way to kind of like name drop like their boss, or like, you know, key people in their team, and sewing back to it as the call kind of goes on. And then the idea is by the end of the call, you don't wait to the end and ask, can we get your boss on the call? You've already been alluding to Mary and Joe and Michael, and you already feel like you're kind of part of their team because you're on a first name base. Exactly, build the credibility, and then it's cool. So typically what I would do at a next step would be to build, you know, some campaign inspiration ideas, and we can do an ROI calculator. Typically someone like Mary would really benefit from being on that call. Is she going to be available at 2 p.m. on Thursday as well, you know? So like, it's just all these like Jedi mind tricks, but also just building credibility and being well researched and being the kind of person that they're going to want to introduce you to their team. Because if you demonstrate credibility and you show that you know your shit and you show that you're an industry and a product expert, like, are you the kind of person that they want to introduce to their peers? Like probably. Whereas if you just, don't know, run a half-assed disco and you don't show too much credibility and you go, can we get your boss on the next call? We're like, well, I don't really want to introduce you to my boss. So that's kind of my take.
I love that. And to work with Mary and make her life easier, you do, as you mentioned, really need to run a thorough discovery process. And I think a lot of people think that discovery is done after that discovery stage. But I'd love to know, because I feel like there's so many opportunities for you to unpack more pain, really understand the buyer further on and continue that discovery. So Nazma, do you think that discovery is ever really done? And what are those questions that reps here can ask to really unpack that pain?
Yeah, so discoveries are never just done on the first call. I know a lot of people, but definitely back in the day, we used to think that that's how you operate, but no, we learned the hard way. And I think almost every single interaction that you have with anyone in that organization is an opportunity to like dig a bit deeper. And so whether you have a new champion that is introduced, or actually you then create and cultivate a relationship with a champion, you then ask different discovery questions like, okay, so what did the process look like last time that you were in a buyer journey? And okay, so what was the outcome from that? So you understand, okay, well, this is my champion, and the last time, and it's happened before, when we have a champion and then we ask those questions and we discovered that actually last time they didn't have that leverage. Then you own.
Do you mind speaking up a little?
Oh, sorry about the back. Okay.
No, you're all good. We're good.
I shall predict. So yeah, so discovery doesn't finish. Every time that you're interacting with anybody in the organization is an opportunity. And so even with champions, you can, when you have formed a relationship with a champion, you can ask them those challenging questions that even Ben, you were saying like, oh, early on, being able to, having the courage to ask those difficult questions. And when you have somebody, when you have that kind of level of relationship, you can ask them the difficult questions. Because sometimes you don't have visibility of what a process looks like, or perhaps your champion thinks that they are a champion, perhaps they're not. And so I think discovery in almost every single interaction takes place or should take place. And there's circumstances where right at the last minute you have to run another discovery because perhaps, well, you never know, someone else might have just come new into the process.
Yes. Is there a question that you've asked that you've been like, oh shit, this got all the information that I needed?
Well, this is going to sound really simple, but and it's really interesting because a lot of like the sales questions that we ask and that I've taught, that I've also been using for many years are actually the same things. We don't need to change the wheelhouse. And for me, it's always whenever they jump on a call with me is, okay, so what is the reason why we're on the call today? And it's a really simple question because sometimes we have so many assumptions and then we have these scripted discovery questions. But sometimes just asking them, what is the reason why? And then another question that I think is amazing to ask is, once you've potentially like gone through an agenda, or you say, okay, right, we are going to be discussing X, Y, Z, is there anything that you want, is there anything else that's missing or anything else that you want me to cover during this call? And I promise you, and actually I'm going to put my hands up, I implemented that about 4 months ago. And 80% of my calls have completely changed the direction of the entire sales call. And it's like, okay, this is what I want, this is what I want to see. I was thinking to myself, oh my God, thank God. Because I would have spent so much time on something else. So those are, I guess, the two ones. Very simple.
But sometimes simple, most effective. Put your hands up if you are an SDR. Ben, how do these lovely SDRs avoid crab walking?
What's crab walking?
What is crab walking? And how do they avoid it?
Crab walking. Does anyone know what crab walking is?
I know the exercise.
You did a post about crab walking.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain? Does anybody know?
Particularly on a cold call. What is the purpose? You should know the answer to. What is the purpose of a cold call? You're phoning someone the first time, you never really spoken to them. What are we trying to do to this person? Yeah, we're trying to get them to feel something about what it is that we may fix so that we can continue the conversation. So that's what we're trying to do. Now, that's not an intellectual conversation. So what happens is with crab walking is when I teach people how to structure the call to get towards that point, SDRs in particular have it. So that's how you're selling in a software system. The prospect will say, well, we currently use ABC software. And then rather than sticking to the structure of trying to move them down, you suddenly go off on a quick, oh, ABC, how do you find X, Y, and Z? And then they say, oh, we quite like, and then you start asking a load of other intellectual questions and you're moving away from the purpose. The purpose is to move someone down towards emotion. So when you say you're struggling with X, can you give me an example? How long has that been going on for? What have you done to try and fix it? I'm slowly moving them down towards something. Whereas if you go off on an intellectual tangent, how many of you have spoken to someone for 20 minutes? It's just been a really good intellectual chat. Yeah, you can go round the houses, and then it's your people go close them, close them. Yeah, close them. Yeah, and then you go, oh, okay. So look, well, look, it's been a really good chat. How about we get something in the diary? And the guy says, no, I'm not interested, because we've spent 20 minutes having this crab walk sideways conversation, talking intellectually, but we haven't done our job, which is to move them from intellect to emotion. I want them by the end of the call. It takes about 6 to 8 minutes to get them to say, you know what, maybe you do have something. So I'm trying to, maybe you got something. Then we can, that's the purpose of the call. So crab walking is going off on each tangent. When I listen to cold calls, it's, why did you ask that? Well, I didn't know what else to say. Well, yeah, but what's on the list of things to be said? Why didn't you ask him how it made him feel? How many of you ask people, how does it make you feel? Not a lot of people ask that question. How does that make you feel? Yeah, because that's what you're after. Because if someone doesn't feel it, they're not going to spend any time wanting to talk further about it. You can intellectually try and convince someone to buy your stuff, and I go, I get it. It makes perfect sense, and I can see why we should do it. I don't care. And you've achieved nothing. But if you get the emotion, if you say, you know what, we need to do something, then there could be intellectual reasons why they can't, but they're more easy to overcome than a lack of emotion or a personal reason. It goes back to Paul said, too much I. Have you been Loops?
That's all right. Suck a bit, or suck a bit, Paul.
Who's Paul?
That's a good retaliation.
Who's Paul? Anyway.
Anyone here?
Anyway, is there a Paul in here?
No.
No? Anyway, what Luke was saying is spot on. Listen to your phone calls. And how often do you hear the word I? It's unbelievable. I. And guess who hears that more than you? The other person on the other end. What's the number one thing every human being loves talking about the most?
Themselves.
Just shut the fuck up about you.
Yes. Yes.
It's not that hard. Yeah, anyway. So that's
Luke made me read The Qualified Sales Leader. He gave me some homework, and John McMahon, if you haven't read it, it's a very good book. I recommend, because I'm so smart on this now. He said, we've got mouths that close and ears that don't. So shut your mouth. Luke, I didn't say this in his introduction, but aside from all of the other accolades, he studied cybernetics and Mandarin.
And artificial intelligence.
And artificial intelligence, if that's not so, at university. So he loves, he's a bit of...
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, I tell you.
Also liar.
And I love that you talk about game theory. So you mentioned this, Scott, a little bit about like gamifying it. So Luke, I'd love to hear from you. How do you win the game before you've even started it?
I'm going to work back. So, you know, good game playing, right? It's about figuring out what the victory condition is first, and then working back from that victory condition and figuring out what all the permutations are that can get you there, right? You think, you know, the amount of permutations that a chess match has is insane. Like, it's too much for our brains, right? But sales, when you use a process, and if you know that that process works, that gives you then a kind of a map to get where you want to get to, right? You know that, you know, if you do this, and this is where I think I maybe disagree with you a little bit on the SaaS stuff, because you were like, yeah, in the board meeting, we talk about doing X many of these, at least this. Well, ultimately, you run an organization at scale, you have to have metrics that turn into, you know, ratios and conversion. So then you need a process that works at scale, right? Because otherwise you can't have 200 AEs if they're not following some sort of process playbook. And so game theory for me, and why I love this whole John McMahon, medic, sales process world, is because it turns this artistry, I think you're somewhat of an artist, into a real science. And I'm a nerd, right? I did a computer engineering degree. So that whole cybernetics gig for me, and cybernetics is just the science of feedback loops, right? Like, yes, it's about robots and stuff, but it's really just figuring out, like, how do you decode things into a loop? And what's beautiful about a sales process is like, okay, if I do a cold call well, and I get a discovery call, and I do that well, following this playbook and process, and I do a new business meeting well, and I follow the best practice, and then I do that well, and it converts at this rate, and I get my you know, my demo, my first meeting, you know, whatever it is, my proof of value, and then I do that well with all of the right guidance and everything. Then I need a champion, and I need pain, and then I have to set the decision criteria properly, right? So how am I going to do that, right? Well, I've got to get my champion and a technical champion, and I really need to basically write the RFP. And if I write the RFP before some other fucker does, then I can give that to that guy, and then that guy's going to send it to these people, and then I'm going to be in control of the deal. And if I get to EB and I say, will you sponsor this? What does success look like to you? And if we do those things, what will you do? And I do that and nobody else does that. You're always more moves ahead than everybody else. And it's just about making those moves and going, if I do this and then this and then this and then this with all the qualitative conditions that we know works for our respective organization sales process, that's how you turn sales into a game. And if you work backwards from the end, and it doesn't just need to be working backwards from, you know, a deal, you can work backwards from, if you know a proof of value is a key part of your sales process and you kind of have to do it to be in the fight, work backwards from that. Or work backwards from building a champion and all the things that go into that. But just keep working backwards and do a reconciliation plan. I think you guys were talking about that earlier. You were talking a bit about that. Like, reconcile all the things that get you where you need to be and then figure out how to be 10 moves ahead of everyone else.
Love that. Nazma, you did a LinkedIn post where you said the best salespeople uniformly agree that the job of a salesperson is to build trust with buyers. So how do you say that we build trust?
Trust, you can't create trust just on one call. Like, that's just a fact. So just because you show up as the best version of yourself, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're just going to earn that trust. And I think the greatest salespeople are, they're not trying to sell anything to you. They're trying to basically collaborate and figure out whether they can help you solve a problem. And I think if you approach every single conversation like, okay, I'm here to problem solve and to see if I can help you, I feel that that's something, that kind of energy and those conversations, the buyers or your prospects are really feeling that, because, okay, right, this person really is genuinely wanting to figure out whether they can help me or not. And so I think definitely having that kind of consultative approach, but that is something that you embody in every single communication that you have. I feel like being able to have ask those difficult questions, and if something isn't a good fit or they don't even realize that there's a problem, to be able to actually steer them into that kind of like framing it for them and helping them. And not a lot of people do that. And I think definitely there's been a lot of evolution when it comes to sales methodology. And I do feel that buyers have a lot more respect for those who, are quite, that are very honest and very transparent. Have you thought about this? And actually, question the status quo, push back a bit, but of course in a polite way. And then I'd say being competent is our job to understand what the tech does, being an educator. If we think about it, if you're a consultant and you are solving a problem, you should be an expert. You should know far more than what your buyer does. And one thing, actually, I'm going to go off in a bit of a tangent. One thing that really helped me, I think about a year ago, because we're always learning, we're always growing. There were times in the past when I was doing a demo and I was a bit, really worried about the question I was asking, how I was going to do demo. And it just occurred to me, it's like, your buyers don't know as much as you do. They are not fixated on the problem, but you are. And if you're able to lead them and educate them along the journey, that's where the trust / credibility is created. So if you could show up, and it's not just a one-time thing, it's not like a one-time conversation. It's every interaction that you're genuinely coming from a place of, and also, like you said, it's like everyone lives in hopelam and they're just thinking, oh yeah, this deal is going to happen. But if you're genuinely honest about it, then it's also going to impact your ability to get into President's Club because you're being honest with yourself.
We talk about honesty, Ben. How do you?
Well, I was going to add to what you were saying, and one of the ways to create trust too is disarming honesty. Salespeople have a reputation of not being particularly honest. Would you agree? And you do it through behavior that you don't even know is making you seem dishonest. So, for instance, if you get challenged, we have a tendency to justify and defend a position, don't we? Yeah. And so when you justify and defend your product or your service, what does it sound like, though, to the person on the other end? It sounds like you're trying to prevaricate and avoid, even if you're being truthful. So how we conduct ourselves, so disarming honesty is one of the best ways. So I'm really upfront. There are more reasons for people not to give you money than there are. So why don't we discuss those? Because the fear we have is, well, what if we hit on one? And they say we can't move forward. I'd rather know we can't move forwards. This is a red light in the first meeting then get 4 meetings down to suddenly discover, you know? So it's about getting to that point. And he's quite right. Deconstruct it, work backwards. Anything you want to tell a prospect, figure out what questions do I ask to get them to say it. Because you see, the thing is, humans are interesting. If you tell somebody something, they'll argue with your data. 10 out of 10, right? But if you get someone to say what you want, then they're more likely to believe it because they've said it. Yeah? So rather than tell them our system does X, get them to say, but if it could do X, then bingo, you said it, not me. Yeah? People will argue with your data, but they won't argue with their own. And trust comes from asking questions that they don't know the answers to as well. What is the point of me hiring someone if I can answer every one of your questions? Why do I need you? Why am I going to give you a load of money? You've got to make me think, huh, that's interesting. I've never been asked that. I didn't realize that. The other, and this is how you get to dig out competence. Well, when competitor X asks that question, how did you answer it? Well, they've never actually asked that question. Oh, is that because that isn't an important question? No, it is. So why do you think they didn't ask that? I don't know. I don't know either. Yeah, now I can drive a wedge.
Yeah, well, I was going to add, I think that's one of those common mistakes I think more junior reps I certainly made as a new AE is burying your head in the sand. So identifying a red flag, acknowledging it even in the back of your mind, having the happy ears, and just thinking like, oh, I hope that doesn't come to anything. And then like you keep going through the process and you might not tell your manager, but like you know they said that thing on that call like 3 calls ago, and you know that it's like going to be something that could unstick the deal. And then like
that's literally, I spent all my life listening to gong calls, like looking for that thing that someone said that someone's decided not to pay attention to.
So now when it happens, I always
own it and like run over to your manager, like, then you said this. Crisis.
Well, I say it to the prospects as well. So they'll be like, oh, like someone in the team uses HubSpot, like I'm selling CRM. Why don't you just use HubSpot then? Yeah. Like instead of trying to sell, oh, but we're better for good. Why don't you just use them?
Ask a question you don't want the answer.
Yeah. And that's always better.
I was working with an advertising agency many years ago, and I got to final pitch stage with a big well-known car brand. And you know, whenever you lose a pitch, you just lost, right? Or something like that. So when I asked them, well, why did you lose? He goes, well, we're going to find out. They're going to give us a feedback. So when they found out the reason why they lost, it's so ridiculous. Why did you lose? Well, the other agency had previous forecourt experience. And so I said, so when you ask them during this whole process, is the fact that we've never worked with a car company before or had any forecourt experience ever going to be a reason why you couldn't work with us? What did they say? Because I didn't ask that. I said, why not?
Right.
And he said, what every idiot would say. Well, I was hoping it wouldn't.
Exactly.
This is right. You should be trying to torpedo the deal. If a bomb's going to go off, you should detonate it. Don't let the fucker do it, because if you detonate it, you can control it. But if you let them pull it, you're screwed. And you can do it early.
This is back to the why you don't go to President's Club, because people have got a bunch of bullshit pipeline that they think is real because they're burying the bad news and they're paying attention to the good news. And it's just you're living in la bullshit land because you're not asking the hard questions. And, you know, you need to run towards that like bomb, and you need to like try and kill that deal by asking hard questions.
I was going to say, I start off every meeting. I say, shall I tell you the 3 reasons you're not going to work with me even if you want to? And you give them the 3 biggest reasons. And you know what people do? They start arguing with you why you're wrong. Right. They will. But if one of them does apply, well, now we can have a conversation. I'm not waiting till the end. But let's have it now. And often most problems can be overcome. So I want to find out if a red light is a red light. Can I move it to amber or to green? But if it's going to stay red, I'm leaving.
The reason, can I just finish it with one? Because the reason I went for him so much on that initial point about the 2 personas, because one of the things I see, especially like earlier in career people, is they have a work self and they have a personal self. And then the work self, the personal self is like the authentic self, right? The friend, you know, the hobbies, the interests. And then the work self is like, I'm new to sales and I'm selling to like middle-aged white people. And I'm going to like try and be like really, you know, professional and weird. And they get all like, and then they come into this like medic playbook company, it gets like 100 times worse because like medic. And then it's like, it's all fucking horrible. You know, and so like that is just bad news. It's like, be your fucking self at work, right? And like, if you like cool, weird stuff, tell the people that you're trying to sell to about the cool, weird stuff that you did that weekend, right? Like, and if you don't like golf and they do, just be okay with that, right? Like, you know, just be yourself, because to this point of like, no one wants to be your friend on the other end of a cold call, right? They just want you to add value to them. and they just want you to be honest with them, and they just want you to have a real problem-solving conversation with them. Be credible, do your research, have a good point of view, know what their colleagues might care about, right? That is what gets you to trust. That is what gets you to honesty. But if you skip the credibility, or if you skip the authentic part and you skip the credible part, you are fucked.
We have 2 more questions before we get to the Q&A section, because I'm sure so many people are burning. Scott, you hit 151% of your target, so you've clearly closed quite a few deals in your time. How do you prevent coming across as desperate and pushing the prospects to close to your timeline?
I think the short answer is excessive pipeline. The reason why you get desperate is because you need the deal. And even if you try not to convey that, even if in your mind you're like, oh, like I'm gonna act like I don't need the deal, like it comes across, your prospects pick up on things. Every time we communicate, we're complicated people. We pick up on all these subtleties, your tone, your body language, the way you phrase something, intonation, the way your voice goes. And so being desperate is difficult to hide. And yeah, the easiest way to avoid that completely is to have an excessive pipeline. So whether it's doing PG Tuesdays, like Paul implements it.
Paul.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Let's go, Paul.
And Paul. But I know that you're huge on like a self-gen. It's like, and it's the same thing, and being new in a role. Like when I was new at Monday, I absolutely crammed my diary. Like for the first 6 months, I was pretty much back to back, like, don't know, 10, 12 discos a week, just like maybe more, just demos, and just literally just like reps, but just like knowing that I was first of all building the muscle of like how to sell this product, but also just building like excessive pipeline. And then you get ahead of your target, so you smash Q1 or you smash your ramp, and then it's like, cool, and there's no better feeling in sales than being in that cruising position when you're ahead of target. You know that you don't need every deal, and you just can ooze confidence in everything you do from that point onwards. And obviously the opposite's true. If you're behind on Q1, going into Q2, like, oh, my H1's looking a bit shit now, like I really need to and then you're like, well, like, oh yeah, well, we'll do a discount if you close by the end of, and then, so it's just, be in control, have excessive pipeline, and get ahead.
PG gives you swagger, swagger gives you deals. This man's got swagger, hasn't he?
There you go.
I'm dying inside. Well, you said that. You do have swagger, I'm sure. I'm sure. The last question that I want to ask is around negotiation, and I'm sure that we could do a whole panel on this, but you've all got some conflicting opinions on this, which I really want to touch on if we can do this in the next 5 minutes, rapid fire. Ben, you said negotiation is what sales reps do when they fuck up the sale, so you don't teach people to negotiate. Why?
No, again, so
Don't backtrack.
I'm not
You said that.
backtracking. I said, if you want to learn to negotiate, join the FBI. But yeah, no, I think negotiating is, if you have to negotiate to win a deal, if you can't get the value that you know you're worth, if you're unable to get that across to the prospect through the process that you follow, then you have failed in your job, haven't you?
No.
No? See? Good. I knew they'd say no. Huh?
You're doing it.
Yeah. So I don't think you should negotiate. I don't know. That's my simple rule is I know the value of what I'm selling. Selling, in my opinion, is getting your fees on your terms and both parties walking away satisfied. That to me is selling.
Do you think there's a difference between selling your own services as a solo
versus
the content?
I was going to have it. Yes, there is a difference. You guys are all working with corporate selling. There's going to be some corporate scope there, yeah? But a lot of you are going to go out on your own. I don't want you to take the negotiating mindset with you out when you go out on your own and do your own thing. No.
I mean, how many AEs in here? Like half the room. Like, put your hand up again if you've ever dealt with procurement. Right, like, do you know what their job is?
Discounts.
Their target is to get, on average, 30% off all the things that hit their desk. That is their job, right? So unless you play that game, you ain't getting a deal, right? Like, you can try and be like, nah, that's the price. And they will give that deal to your competitor. It is part of B2B selling, right? Because it's just part of the experience, unfortunately. Sure, you can be like, that's the price. If you've got a product that is so remarkably differentiated that you cannot get that anywhere else, then tell me the name of that company and I will go and work for them tomorrow. Because the market isn't like that anymore, right? Like, differentiation comes and goes as quickly as the seasons, you know, it's difficult to really maintain a proper moat these days. And even more so, procurement will try and diminish that differentiation as many which ways as they can. So you have to be prepared to play the game. So you just have to be ready to play the game. But if you don't do a negotiation, I think there's a difference between dropping your pants because you're desperate because you've got no pipeline, and being ready to stick 30% on top of your deal to just give the procurement the people that what they want. But it is part of it's basically what I spend most of my time doing, is coming in and be like, oh yeah, you want a deal? Woof, well, you know, I mean, you're asking for stupid stuff, you know, and it's just playing the drama of it all. You're playing the person.
But you're getting what you want ultimately.
Yeah, what I want, yeah. So
That's how they let it go. You want, yeah, I get what you.
Nazma, did you have anything to add to this?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with Luke. And I would say if somebody comes back to you and asks you, yeah, the negotiating is really to understand the reason why, because there's multiple reasons. We're living in an age where like finance, like make the decision. So maybe it's something coming from finance, or perhaps who you're selling to is a smaller business and they just have rules in place. And so I think that it's very foolish of salespeople to be like, oh, this is the way it is, because at the end of the day, we don't dictate the market. Like we have to just meet the market where it is, and this is just the reality. And if you do, yeah, just close yourself, it's just not a good look. So and it's completely different, rightly so, Ben. Like, yeah, totally. And also, yeah, it's like margins, and you have limited capacity, and so you have the ability to, yeah.
Depends how differentiated your product is. You've got a very.
You have to give in to win. If you have to give in,
Well, that's weakness, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's selling through desperation. Yeah, I think that's the big difference.
I would draw.
I think if you're trying to win on price,
Yeah.
then you floss.
Scott, do you have any closing points?
Well, the only thing I was going to add is if you do negotiate, you don't have to negotiate on the ARR. Like that's like the last resort. You know, you can use different levers. And as a company, if you don't have these, you should have 4 or 5 things up your sleeve that are things that are valuable to the client that don't impact your target attainment. And payment terms, exactly. Case study, onboarding deadline, like confirmed onboarding dates, etc., etc. And anchor the price high as well, because, you know, anticipate the negotiation. Like we have a list price at Monday, I'm always going in like 20% higher, and then people go, oh, like, is there any wiggle room on the price? I go, oh, you know, we're a publicly traded company, we don't have yo-yo pricing, so I anchor high. And then if it really gets to it, and okay, push comes to shove, we maybe come down a little bit, but I'll also give them that. So it's like, you can be smart about it. You don't have to give away 50%.
And guys,
when you
do not wait until the last few days of the month and just offer a discount, because
That's what they want.
look, people still actually do that. I saw an email the other day, I was horrified. Yeah.
Well, we're in the last few days of the month, so hopefully you're not doing that. Right, we now have time for 10 minutes of Q&A. If anybody's got any burning questions, this isn't for projection, so still project, but this is for the recording. Jafar, go for it.
This question to Luke. Luke, you said that during your career at App Dynamics, you met Jeremy. Big fan of Jeremy. And you said that he changed your life. I'm very jealous of it, because I have yet to meet a leader like this who would direct you. So my question is, what have Jeremy said to yourself, like those top 3 things that you have implemented in your career that actually changed the direction for you?
That's a great question, mate. Yeah. Look, I think that one of the things I've learned, and one of the piece of advice I give to people generally, is when you're picking a company, anchor on the person that you're going to go work for, or the leadership, versus like the product and the market, because actually that's what matters. It's what I learned, you know, through this process of like meeting him and having my life change. What did he teach me? I mean, one of the first things was this concept of selling with a process, right? And like, when you know that somebody understands exactly how to get software, you know, sold, leave all your baggage at the door, right? All like, don't fight it. Just fucking forget everything else and just subscribe and just do it, right? And don't like skip a bit. Do it exactly as you're taught. Even when it's like the customer's saying, yeah, I know we don't need to meet the EB, it's all good. You're like, we're going to do that part because I know that part is needed in it. And so it was like, follow the process and don't give up. Because there were so many times that I wanted to quit, that it was so hard that I do not want to go to Bracknell on a Monday and pipeline generate at 7 o'clock in the morning. Like, it's like, fuck this. My wife's like, you are miserable. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not giving up. And 7.5 years was a good run. you know. So yeah, follow the process and don't quit.
Great posture. Great overhead. Thanks. Obviously, there's quite a few SDRs in the room as well as AEs, and obviously a lot of businesses prioritize AEs over SDRs for things like President's Club. But I would love for you to give your advice on what SDR should focus on, your top tips, so that they can also see themselves getting into President's Club as an SDR and not just waiting for that to be a likelihood as an AE.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think treating the role like seriously, and I think one of the big shifts as an SDR is you often come from like either like a recruitment background like these guys where you don't feel like you're on level pegging with like a C-suite, and same thing if you're like a new grad, like you don't have that feeling of like you feel like there's a power imbalance. That's what I certainly felt as an SDR. So one of the main transitions I tried to make, I think makes a big difference, is valuing yourself and valuing your time and realizing that your role is like as important, even if it's a senior person. So I don't know. That's like my main take, but I feel like I don't have a very good answer for that. That's not really.
Ben?
I'd be keen to get these.
I would say it's similar to what Luke's been saying. How does anyone become a top golfer or a top swimmer? They get so good at the fundamental basics. How you bend your knees, how you far your legs are apart, how you grip. You've got to master the fundamental basics and get really, really good at it. Yeah, and SDRs, it's with prospecting, and it's a process and a structure. And most salespeople, not most, a lot of salespeople take great pride in like flying by the seat of their pants, that they just wing it, make it up. You know, it's a magical mystery to why I do what I do. Yeah, but it's no good, because if you can't explain to someone why you did what you did, why did you get that meeting? Oh, I don't know, I just made the right call at the right time. That's not good enough. How do you learn from that? So you want to have a rigid process. Break down your calls. I had everything written up in front of me. When I was doing this, I had every objection, and under it I had written 6 different responses. And I would try different ones at different times to see which ones resonated and worked best and which ones suited my personality best. I had everything in front of me so that I knew what was there, and I would reading it all the time. And I wrote down in a journal after my calls where I thought I went wrong. Yeah, I'd write down, he asked me this and I froze. Why did I freeze? Why did I freeze when I was asked this particular question? What will I do next time? And then come up with an answer, write it up on the wall. You have to get methodical about this. You can't just hope you're going to get good. You've actually got to apply yourself. So it doesn't matter what system you use. I think all of them are probably good. If you mastered one of them, you'd do well. But most people don't. They take the bits that they like, which means you take the easy bits or the bits that relate to you most, and you don't do the hard bits. And the hard bit's where the growth is. It's probably the bit that challenges you the most. So that's what you should be doing.
As the person who has to pick who goes to these things, right? Like, my SDR team, BDR team, led by Bronte and Harry over there, I look at that. Number one, we advertise it as come here, get your MBA in sales, because we're all about the process, we're all about the enablement, we're all about the training. And number two, we say you shouldn't be doing that job for any more than a year, because for me that is a recruitment program. That's all that is. Like, come in, do this really well 4 quarters in a row, and you will have an AE job. And we just had 5 SDRs that joined 12 months ago. All of them went up to AE in less than 12 months. And that's what I care about, because you've got to remember, like, as an SDR, you're coming in, yes, it really matters that you're managing that funnel, but like AEs pay for themselves, right? Like they justify their salary really easily because they're generating revenue. And so that's how we run companies. So we want you to go from SDR to AE as quickly as possible, because the ramp time as well is so much better when we're bringing SDRs up versus bringing AEs in externally. It's always better for us to promote from within. So come in, do exactly as Ben said, follow a process, know why you're good, be better than everyone else, make it a no-brainer for us so we can promote you as quickly as possible. And then, like, the guy that we just promoted, like, is first quarter is going to do 200% of his number. You know, it's like, just work harder than everyone else and make it an easy decision for us.
Luke, can I just add something to that though? Just like, I always thought that every single person that I'd have in this in a sales organizer, SDR, they're going to want to become an AE, like 100%. And that was kind of like just the trajectory, and most people did. But actually, some people do really enjoy being an SDR for like, there's lots of career SDRs, and perhaps not in your organization. And certainly, like, yeah, when I've built in the past, it's usually there's been a trajectory. Most people come in and they want to become an AE, but there are other organizations, there are other SDRs that love doing the work. So I guess maybe you nodded, so I guess. Okay.
It's different. I mean,
Not an SDR, but that's why I asked the question, because obviously there's a lot of SDRs in the room. So I think it's really great that they get this, like, the same. I think as an SDR manager, I put a lot of my time making sure the SDRs actually get heard. So that's kind of why I asked the question. I don't agree that you should be promoted to an AE within 12 months. And actually, as an SDR manager, I never wanted to be an AE. Never interested me. I was an SDR for a year, and I was like, that looks fucking awful. No, I did not want to do that. It was like dreadful. But what I did enjoy was hosting webinars and mentoring and helping my peers. I've been like, oh, if you try that got me a meeting. Like, why don't you give that a crack? So obviously, like, every organization has different attitudes, etc. Personally, I think someone should be an SDR for about 18 months before I think they're ready to move into a closing role. But again, that's depending on what you're selling, etc. That's always open for discussion. But yeah, I just think it's really important that SDRs know that they actually do bring revenue. They are value driven. I disagree that they don't prove their value because they're not closing the business. They drive pipeline.
The one thing that I would
Without
say,
the pipeline, then
yeah, sure, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I say is you're in such a fortunate position that you're an SDR manager, you're a leader in the organization. And I think that if in your organization that there isn't a space for SDRs, that hopefully you're able to have those conversations with the leadership team, because they are super valuable.
Yeah, I didn't say they don't bring value. I said they don't pay
Yeah.
for themselves as easily as an AE does. Like, there's a simple ROI, right? When you're talking to a board about bringing in revenue and you have to build a revenue plan, an investment plan, everything is anchored off an AE. It's just the way it goes.
conscious of time, we've got time for 2 more questions. I know that you had one.
yeah.
Go for it.
I find it really interesting, and I agree with it, that a lot of AEs bullshit themselves a lot of the time. So as leaders, when you've got so many AEs, what are some of the things that you look for, and what are some of the questions you ask AEs to figure out if they're bullshitting themselves or not?
Sweet question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about, and number one, creating a safe space to say it's okay for us to have like gaps all over this deal. Like, number one is like, it's okay for this deal to be bad. Like, let's just get to a point where everyone's talking about the bad news, not the good news. That's the first thing you've got to establish. Because if you have a culture of like fear and consequences, right, where people fear sharing that stuff, then you're never going to fix that, right? People are always going to be hiding because they're going to be worried about getting fired. So you've got to create a safe space. And then it's like, okay, every time one of these actually, you know what, I don't have a champion. Every time it gets brought up, you have to talk about it in a really constructive, useful, helpful way where you're like, okay, cool, well, let's break the problem down. Like, who are the people in the organization? Who have you identified? What do we know about them? Like, have you filled out the plan? You know, are you using the tools that we've given you? And the more like publicly that you make everyone feel like it's okay that things are wrong, the better. And then it's about like asking the questions. It's always qualifying rather than like, you don't have a champion. It's like, why do you have a champion? How have you tested this person? How many times have you sat with them in person? You know, what do you know about them personally? You know, what do you know about them professionally? And very quickly, and you're like, okay, so wait, you've never met them. You don't know anything about them personally, professionally, yet they're your champion.
Do you try to be sport about torpedo the deal, basically?
Not torpedo the deal, but understand where the weak spots are so you can build the deal back up in the right way. Because like my job, if I just went around trying to torpedo all my reps' deals, I'd have no deals, right? Like, my job is to find out where I can add value to get the deal on the right track.
One thing I'd add to this as well is I think as an AE, I think it's important to take ownership of these red flags. For example, like, I still see this quite a lot at the moment. It'll be, you know, the question in a war room will be, oh, where's the risk in this deal? And people will be like, oh, I'm not too sure. I can't really see any risk. It's like, if you can't see 2, 3 risks in your deal, even if it's rock solid, like, there's still a risk. Like, there's still something that could happen. Or people will say like, oh, yeah, it's out, the sales order's out for signature. Like, why are they not signing? Oh, I don't know. And then it's like, well, what's the compelling event? And who's your champion? And then it's like, all of a sudden you realize there's like no like solid base behind what they've got there. So it's like, I think also looking for people who take that ownership and like own the responsibility and aren't afraid to say, yeah, like, this is a risk, this is a risk, this is a risk. Like, and then you have to try and mitigate it and try and create plans around it. But that's something I see a lot of people doing.
And if you build in a culture of process and system, AEs, you can question them, ask them. When you ask them this, what did they say? I didn't ask that. Well, why not? It's on the list of things you say, well, why? And you can challenge AEs. Why aren't you doing what you're paid to do as well? This is important. A lot of them just go in there, a lot of time can just fluff things. It's like, what did you get from them that we needed to know? And why didn't you get it? You've got to go back. So if you're following a process and a structure, it eliminates a lot of headache. But again, winging it, flying by the seat of your pants doesn't work. It may work for a bit, but it's not a career trajectory. No.
Well, the last thing that the only thing I would add is just from a leader's perspective, the thing is, you could, of course, do the best that you can when you're basically screening for a job and then you have a manager, and perhaps the reality is your manager may not be perfect. And so we need to take a bit of agency. And so if you know that your deals are siding and you're not transparent, to just have a bit of trust and to be open and to be transparent and to be talking about the failures. And so I think that, I've had people in my team that I really struggled to give feedback to in the past because it would just be like defensive and it was really hard and I'm still working. Yeah, it took a while to like build that trust because, it's a two-way street. But I feel that, well, I guess I just want you guys to feel empowered to have those conversations and just remember that feedback is a gift, but you need to also take a bit of ownership and enable your managers to feel comfortable to do that. And so sometimes we're just like, okay, well, maybe my manager, I don't, but have you been open? Have you been transparent? How do you respond when you get that negative feedback?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We made eyes. If you can direct this to one person and we'll then wrap up, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, stole this question from coaches. Sounds like you guys talking a lot about targets, and apparently hitting the target is like a #1 thing to get to a president club.
How you qualify normally.
Is there anything else the salespeople or AEs or BDRs need to do a part of it just to get there, or like hit your target guaranteed, or you think a part of your brilliant execution, some like your qualities can.
For those that couldn't hear at the back, she said, is there anything else aside from hitting your target to hit President's Club?
So from my experience, it's very clear cut. These are your targets, you hit them, you get to President's Club. Nobody really cares about anything else. Well, that's been my experience. So very, very clear, very metrics driven. I think when you think about progression, and if you want to get promoted and you want to step up, then it's different because you have your soft skills and how you collaborate.
We always look at the promotion stuff is always like what and the how.
Yeah.
Like, how are you as a person at work? Like, how additive are you? But President's Club is like, it's there to reward and incentivize the top performers, right? Like, so yeah, if you're in a supportive role to sales and you don't have a quota, then it's a bit more about the how and the what, but there's only a small portion of those people. So no, you just got to be best. Just got to be
Well, I was going to say, what would you guys say about things like admin, like filling in the CRM and like having all your med pick up to date in the system?
I mean, that would happen every single week. I've had people like in my team that like on Sundays I had to do my reporting, so they know that they have to do it, and so we created processes just to ensure that everything's updated. But if it's not, I mean. Yeah.
If someone did 150 and then they didn't have anything filled.
I mean, it's a weekly basis. I look at things on a weekly basis, like on a monthly basis.
The thing is, you can't. I've got a rep like this.
Name?
And no, absolutely not. And they're awesome. They're great at selling. They're so fucking shit at Salesforce. The problem is, I can't run a business.
Exactly.
When I don't have the data to run it. And as much as, like we might bemoan the boardroom conversation, it's part of running a VC funded company is like reporting to the board and running the business and understanding what's going on. So if you've got a process, but you've got no information pertaining to how that person is managing themselves and the business, like if they say, oh, I've got loads of pipeline, none of it's in Salesforce, like how on earth can you run a business that way? You can run a business your way like that, but I can't run a business with 35 reps that way.
I do very detailed reporting, like literally, like I'm very, very detailed. It's a weekly basis. So I mean, I would just your admin needs to be up to date, and then everyone has a dashboard that
you're never going to get to president's job without me, though. That's never going to get you there, is it? Yeah.
Well, they don't have a job.
Our panelists are melting. The fan is back out, so I think it's time to wrap things up. But can I have a huge round of applause for our panelists? As As I mentioned, this is an event by Wiser Elite. We are a recruitment company, so if you do want to talk to us, speak to our amazing team at the back. We also host 5 sales communities. This is an SDRs of London and AEs of London event. So if you're not a member already, then please do scan the QR codes that are at the front or on your cards that are in your goodie bags. Enjoy your goodie bags. Leave us a Google review if you could. Welcome to stay until 9. Please do enjoy the food and drinks, and thank you so much for coming.